Hey everyone, welcome back to Draw Sessions. This is where I help you become a better artist. We are back at it with the ballpoint pen today. So I'm going to walk you through something that I have been thinking about in my head, which is this weird creature. It's going to be a portrait today, and like I said, I'm going to walk you through the process of doing it with the ballpoint pen, because with the ballpoint pen, you have no margin for error at all. But while it does kind of seem intimidating, the great thing about it is that it forces you to just say, you know what, I'm going to let go of all the insecurities that I have about the line work that I'm putting down, and I'm just going to draw just for the sake of drawing. Now, I was thinking of this weird, almost worm-like creature, and it's going to have a kind of a strange face here. Now I'm just taking the pen and I'm just walking myself through what could be the head. I have no idea what's going to be the head, so I'm just kind of splashing down these weird marks and stuff. Later on, like the last video I did, I'm going to be shooting towards a time-lapse section. And I think that worked out really well last time. It seemed to resonate with a lot of you, and you liked seeing the sped up process as well as the, the real life process. So there's no editing at all. There we go. You can really see inside here. The other thing about drawing with a pen is that oh wait, there we go. The other thing about drawing with a pen is that it gives you a different kind of marking. All right, I'm going to test something out here. I'm actually going to turn the light down. I don't know if that's a little too bright. Let's see what it looks like when it's off. Wait, there we go. Oh, look at that. My drawing is in the shadow. I don't really like that, so I think I'm going to turn it back on. Yeah, I'll turn it back on. You could probably see enough of it, but anyway. Enough stalling. I am drawing this creature with the intent of having a really pronounced bone structure. And I'm going to do something different today. Each time that I draw these creatures, I'm going to hit you with something a little bit different. Something more alien. This one is going to have a weird jaw. Now, I get asked often, how do I come up with stuff on the fly like this? And I actually just wrote a message in the community tab about when you are trying to draw something and you don't really know how to come up with ideas. The problem right away is the fact that you don't look at enough reference. The only way that an artist is able to paint and draw on the fly, quote unquote, make something up completely, is the fact that there's enough of a visual library in the head so that it translates to the paper, or if you're painting on canvas. And if you don't look at reference, then what does your brain have to pull from in order to make stuff up? Because really it's kind of like what your dreams are. Your dreams are just made up of things that we see during the day and throughout the years. Sometimes you don't dream about something that you see until like 10 years later. Everything is stored in your brain. So you need to think about that as far as, drawing goes. Ooh, look at this one. It's getting kind of... I told you guys that I liked cosmic horror, so we might go that route. I don't know, but this thing is looking pretty gross. It's like a strange head coming down, so I don't know. If you're wondering about the materials that I'm just using a straight up Bic ballpoint. See? Just a black ink. It's one of these silver banded ones, and there's the cap at the back. You can pick these up for like $6, maybe even cheaper than that. I'm going to show you a little bit of I'm going to show you a little tip here for eyes. I think for this particular eye, I'm just going to have it be jet black. And I'm going to, since this is ink, you cannot get this up. I'm going to use the tone of the paper right in the middle of that pupil as the speck highlight that's going to hit the eyeball. So I'm going to draw around it in a little circle, and then maybe add a little bit of a second speck in there. There it is. That's all you have to do. Now, if you have a streak that's going across a bigger section of the eye, then be very careful about where you apply tone around that streak. Okay? That might be a lesson all in itself. You know, as a matter of fact, I think I have mentioned in some earlier polls about doing eyeballs. Okay, everybody is obsessed with doing eyes. I was obsessed with doing eyes. Eyes are cool, and there's so many different ways to do them. All right, so when I apply texture and shading with ink, like with a pen, it's a little different. So the metal tip here before the ink comes out, this is your kind of like your saving grace. Okay, it's not like graphite though, when you tilt it to the side and you get that really nice flat part and then you just shade on that flat part. Instead, you just tilt the pen up ever so slightly vertically until ink comes out. And when you want a lighter line in there, you just tip it back. Now I have a bit of a cheeky response to people who ask me, well, how do you shade lighter in some areas and darker in another? And the answer is just don't push harder. That's all. I know that it's kind of like a smart ass way to say it, but there is no other way to say it. Just don't push hard. And if you have trouble controlling the pressure, you don't need to buy H's and then 6B's and then stuff with lighter or harder graphite or darker graphite. I mean, you can. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. But you just got to train your hand in order to apply pressure and then release the pressure. And the reason why that's so valuable to have is because one of these days when you're drawing in a cafe and you're doing something for a client, you're only going to have one pencil. You're not going to have your whole entire set. And when you learn how to draw an entire picture with just one pencil, that's when you truly have mastered hand control. And that's what we ultimately want as an artist, right? Hand control. All right, so this thing's getting kind of gross. How about we put a weird, like, ear on the side of it? Let's see what that looks like. So notice how light I'm keeping it. I'm just kind of walking the ink over. All right, so I'm walking the ink over like this. Okay, now I have to think about the functionality of this thing. Let's think about all the creatures that might have this. All right, there are lionfish, there's sunfish, pretty much a lot of aquatic animals that have big fins on the sides of their heads, for good reason too. If you swim and you're an animal, you're going to need as many fins and ways as possible to maneuver through water, period. So if you can do that, that'd be awesome. Now, there is something to be said about just trying to make something look cool. Okay, yeah, it's totally fine. All right, there we go. I'm actually going to check down here to see if I can switch the tone of the paper. Okay, so there's like a reddish light. That's pretty cool. There's blue. Ooh, I like that one. I'm going to use that one. It kind of shows up a little better too, so that's cool. There we go. So now I'm just kind of walking the ink over. It's not like graphite where it fills the gaps of the paper. No, this is ink. It dries very fast and it sits directly on top. So a lot of wispy marks with ink goes a long way. It's different with a pencil because a pencil takes up more space. So now I'm just doing wispy marks very lightly, and I'm walking it up and I'm turning it a little bit. It's just like my shading technique that I do, that I have explained in many videos already, how I'll just walk it over and just go in different directions. Again, you need to be very careful about ink because once it is down, it is down. See, ink offers a really nice texture. You can check that out in there. It's pretty fun. All right, so here I'm thinking that this creature probably will have a form of like a fang or something maybe up top there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show it on the other side in perspective. Oh, good old perspective with creatures, huh? Yeah. That's another big lesson. I've actually gone over that in a video or two, but it's a universal problem. Just getting perspective to look like when it comes to organics. Much easier with hard surface because you got that straight lineage, but with organics it's a different ballgame. So I'm trying to think about what that mouth actually does. All right, so there is something to be said about having creative freedom when you do creatures, because you want everything to look cool, right? You want everything to look cool. You don't really care about what parts of the body does per se, but you kind of do have to worry about that once you start finalizing the entire picture. Because what happens is, if you start putting details on a creature that's not well thought out, you're just kind of putting stuff as you may. Imperfections and wrong things will start to show in the anatomy. Okay, I have to be very careful right around here in the face. Okay, I'm putting eyeballs in, but I'm also putting an indent in the skeletal structure, so I know that there's an eye socket there. See how light I'm being around the eye? I want to make sure that each individual eye has its own socket within the skull. Always remember that. If you guys are doing creatures and you're doing a face, please try to avoid putting the eyeballs so close together that they're touching. I mean, yeah, you could do something that looks like a spider, but when you're doing something that's like mammalian or a larger creature, that you're going to see those details. Because I always try to imagine, hey, what is this going to look like on the big screen? Is it going to look believable? Or does it suck and I didn't design it correctly and my life's over and it's not good? All right, you got to think of in those lines. Like, whose job are you going to make easier by designing this correctly? Again, here we go. I am giving myself permission to make these lines coming down. Okay, I'm just kind of walking the lines down. All right, so now I'm starting to figure out what I want to do with this creature. Okay, so here's two tentacles hanging down. My guess is that if those top fangs come, guess what? Those fangs are going to have to meet another part of the mouth. So we're going to have, and I'm going to look directly over, filming on my phone, by the way, so I have to look directly over my phone. There's a bottom jaw. I don't want to get crazy with it. It's not one of those powerful jaws. Okay, it is powerful, but it's more, how should I put it? It's more of something on this creature where it doesn't really need it. It's kind of like a vampire's fangs, when the only reason the vampire has fangs is so it can bite somebody's neck and turn it into a vampire. Okay, like, yeah, to feed. Other than that, a vampire has like sharp claws. Some of them can turn into bats. They can run really fast. They can disappear. Do all kinds of stuff. There we go. All right, so you're starting to see the layering effect with the pen. So this is when it's fun. You can just kind of walk yourself around here, see if anything happens. This is the main structure right here in the face. And I'm keeping the pen, you can probably hear it, keeping the pen in a circular motion. I like how that looks, so I'm just going to kind of walk out some scribbles here and there. So the style of this drawing is going to be a little different in that a lot of it's going to be super loose. Okay, I'm going to show you the power of drawing loosely. Again, it's ink. There's no eraser. If I see a line that goes across this body that I don't like, I'm going to make it likable. Instead of just giving up and saying, well, I screwed up on that part. It's like, no, there is no screwing up on any part. Just convince yourself that every marking you put down is deliberate. If the line weight and line quality didn't really turn out the way it was supposed to, that's okay. You build off that and make it look good. There we go. All right, so you know what this is turning into, huh? I think this is turning into Maybe something aquatic. Maybe this is like a bit. Oh, look at this. A weird, a weird puffer fish. Yep. I don't know what these are, guys. I have no idea what's going on this thing. And this is so much fun because I have no clue how this is going to turn out. You are witnessing something that might get messed up. But guess what? I don't have an eraser because it's ink. Oh yeah, look at those long tentacles. See, that works. Add a little bit of chaos in there so you don't duplicate what's on the tentacles. Those sides. Another thing that I'm asked a lot when it comes to drawing with a pen. How do I manage to draw without blotches of ink coming out of the pen? And the answer is you need to buy a new pen because that pen sucks. Seriously. Blotches are not supposed to come out of the pen, so stop drawing with it. Okay? Have you seen any blotches come out of this pen? No, because it's a good Bic pen. Do I have bad pens? Yes, and I threw them away. And a lot of times it happens when they get old. It just happens, guys. It's like when you buy those pencils that no matter how many times you sharpen it, it just keeps breaking. Like inside of the wood. It's horrible. We all have those, okay? You can't blame the manufacturer, you can't blame the factory. It just happens. You know, some of the wood and the pencils are just meant to hold the graphite a lot better. There we go. And now, like, I'm starting to see things that I didn't before. Like, for example, the way this shape is, it kind of reminds me of a sunfish. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give the body of it one giant fin at the bottom. And I'm going to circle it up here. And then maybe... what am I doing? I have no idea. Let's put one on the side here. I love doing this. This is like the coolest part about exploratory sketching. Like this. You see how the lines are just kind of coming out? I put a fin here. Okay. Maybe this thing is just one giant anal fin. Maybe it needs a dorsal fin, but you know, we'll see. I gotta put those strange shapes on the other side right there. Oh yeah, see? I'm going to have to bleed over to the other side of the sketchbook. This fin is a little flat, so you won't be able to see it. Just a little bit, so I'm going to like curl it down like this. So you can imagine this thing is just like flapping under the water. And then these three fins, coupled together, are operating on the same appendage right there. So like they can all move separately. There's one. There's two, and there's three. And then this big shoulder piece right in here, right behind this ear flap, or fin, I guess you want to call it. That is also its shoulder, so it can operate. Yeah, because I can start adding just some crazy stuff out there. That's cool. Because like it's ocean life, you know. But guess what? It's not complete unless you start adding it on the other side too. But this other side isn't important. I'm going to show you how you can convey that without screwing it up. Okay, so obviously this fin is going to have more detail than this fin. Okay, remember my atmospheric perspective tutorial, the lizard video, which I recommend you guys go watch, where I was putting, even in my last one too, where I was putting faded shading marks around tentacles, and it looked like it was kind of bleeding into the background. That's ultimately what you want to do, regardless of what you're drawing with. I'll draw that other weird tentacle too. And the thing about a pen is, you actually, well, unless time permitted, you don't really have the luxury of shading the whole darn thing. You can, but it's not necessary. All right, so like right now, I am trying to sell you this creature based on what that front head, or the front of the head, looks like. Now, looking at the values that are happening around that head, I'm probably going to need to go darker with the eye socket, and especially the eye. These are pretty black merciless eyes, similar to a squid or a shark. So you don't need a lot of detail. I put some value that's happening inside of that mouth with ink. Okay, so I'll zoom in here so you can actually see it. Okay, so you see that value happening with all the crisscrosses? All right, so if I draw teeth in there, which I did, I need to darken those teeth so that that value stands above what's in the mouth. And that is the power of not thick to thin, but layering your values. All right, so like, here's another thing, especially with the pen. You can see this cluster of eyes right here, these three. Right underneath it is a cheekbone. There's not enough value happening under the cheek to give me shadow that I am happy with. So I'm going to take my pen, and I'm not going to poke straight down like this, because I don't want to, you know, like a thick line. I'm going to tilt it to the side. Okay, I'm going to take my pinky. I'm going to hold it up here off of the camera, and I'm just going to walk the pen strokes over that area. Now watch the cheek darken as I do it. You see that shadow forming under there? And if I keep going, now what I'm doing is I'm building up my layers to give the illusion that there's structure. So now this entire area is designated for eyeballs within that skull. Underneath here is where that ends. And then you got your, like your mandibles or whatever is coming out of there. Okay. Now I'm not done yet with the structure because I need to make sure that these are attached correctly. Okay, especially this ear. So let's give it some, I keep calling it an ear and it's probably not an ear because this thing doesn't hear underwater. Not like we do. There's some cartilage up there. It kind of does look like a bat. Totally unintentional, but fun at the same time. So now I'm doing really quick bursts of thick to thin lines. And they're not random. They're following those puffer fish shapes. Okay, so a puffer fish has, you know, those awesome spikes that come out. You don't want to mess with a puffer fish, man. Those things are nuts. Poisonous, like they're crazy. They may seem cute because they do look like little hedgehogs of the sea, but you definitely don't want to do that. Okay, so here's another very important thing. This tentacle is in front of that one, and we need to make sure that it stays like that. So we have a couple options. One, I can just outline it, okay, because I do have a pen and it's a little different. Or I can shade this in, fade that back one off into the water. Okay, so I'm barely pushing. See those lines going up? Okay, so I'm just going to turn my thing again. There we go. Turn it again. Notice how I'm getting dark right in that little crevice. Okay, that's because that's where technically the neck begins. It's underneath the head. So I'm just going to walk out that value some. There we go. All right, so I want some separation between these two tentacles. Now, the tentacle itself, I'm going to give some texture. All right, another tip. If you were going to section off, it's kind of like an accordion or a slinky. If you're going to section off a tentacle and you start to round the lines because you're trying to follow the shape of the tube, make sure that it's bending correctly, okay? This line right here is bending down like that. It's like a smiley face. Well, guess what? This area right here is closest to our eyes because it's bent that way. You see it bending? So that means that within this space, it's going to reach eye level. It's probably going to be in the middle of it. So that line will go straight across. Everything under it slowly starts to turn to a smiley face. Everything above it starts to turn to a frown. And then you just walk that shape up. So now you have a very realistic break and bend in that tentacle. Okay. So let's think about what we want to put at the end of this. I don't want to be boring. I don't want to be just like, oh, here's a tentacle. Oh no. Oh, this thing is definitely nothing to be messed with. Okay, so you got these tentacles, but you have these hooks at the end. Like this. If you guys are liking and you want to see more of this content, I absolutely love that influx of people joining our Creature Design Discord. There's a link in the description of this video where you can join the Discord, introduce yourself. We have literally tons of people joining, and they're posting their personal work, and it's great. Everybody, listen, you don't have to be a certain skill level to join the Discord. Everybody starts on an even keel, and everybody is learning. All right, and that's all that matters is everybody is learning. There we go. I'm also starting up a private drawing mentorship. So I do have a creature design workshop that you can also join on the Discord, but I'm starting back up my private drawing mentorship because the demand is there. And I want to make sure that I reach as many aspiring artists as I can. If you're interested in my private drawing mentorship, there's only 6 slots per month. Okay, 6 slots, that's it. 2 have filled up this month, or for February. There's 3 left. You can join the Discord, learn to navigate through it, and you can DM me on there if you're interested in the private mentorship. I only take people that are serious about wanting to get better at drawing. There we go. Oh yeah, that thing is crazy looking. Look at that thing. You want to make it even more deadly? Let's do this. Okay, so here's another cool thing about depth of field and things like that. Let's zoom out so we can check it out. Oh yeah, you can start to see the depth happening. Now, you won't get to do as much with the pen, but it is there. Okay, there's the depth of field. Let's work on that mouth a little bit, and then we'll work on that other tendon coming, or not tendon, I'm sorry, tentacle. Okay, let's zoom back in so you can see. There we go. So let's work on that mouth. You know what? Why don't we have just a cluster of sharp craziness coming out of there? Now, how do I know what to make darker, and how do I know what to keep lighter? Well, I am paying very close attention to all of the values next to each other. All right, so everything out here on the side of the mouth where it looks like it's wrapping around, that's laying against the cream color of the paper, so anything I put out there is going to show up. But if I'm in here, what do? Well, if I put teeth inside here, they got to be darker than what that lighter value level is. All right, so like this area right in here gets some more shading treatment. There we go, like that. Let's put a weird, like a cyst shape up here. Maybe like some poison sacs that sit on top of the head. I don't know. Like when you look at this thing, you probably don't want to touch it. It's pretty gnarly. There we go. Roll that off there. It's just so much fun drawing like this, just because it doesn't require any effort design-wise. Like, you do have to pull from your reference library in your head of just studying creatures and such, but this is the beauty of thumbnail sketching, guys. Like, you don't have to obsess about making sure everything is perfect. Just have fun with the process. There we go. Now, here's another thing, and it just comes with training, it just comes with years of doing it. This tentacle coming down is similar to the tone that I put of that ear on the other side. I don't like that, all right? So, I don't have an eraser, because it's a pen. How do I fix that? Here's the thing. Look underneath here in this tentacle. You see how it bends outward, and then it bends under and then back out. Well, guess what? That under part is going to collect a shadow. That is a prime location where I can put a shadow in there that's slightly darker than that ear on the other side. There we go. Now, since it's a pen, strokes in one direction aren't necessarily going to look great, so I got to make sure that I'm going to finesse this. I'm going to layer some lighter lines on top of it, and I'm going to walk it up that shadow and blend it into the rest of that tentacle. And there we go. So I made sure that that is just a tad darker than what that is over there. So now over here, I can just walk up. I don't know what other word to or way to put that. I can put that that value on that back part too. Here's another cool thing that I can do. Inside here, it's still light enough to where extra ink will show up. So I'm just going to put some shadow in between each of those section lines. All right, there we go. So now let's zoom out and test it. Yeah, that's looking cool. Okay, so you got like the dark darks, you got your midtones, and then you got your looseness coming out here. Now, if you want to get really loose, check this out. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to keep it zoomed out like this. Here's how you really loosen it up. Like this, put another fin in there, maybe another body part. This is not sped up anyway, see? Not sped up. I will let you know when we're about to go into time lapse. There we go, some looseness. Maybe it's like a jellyfish where there are thousands of poisonous tentacles coming off of this thing and it's just kind of floating through the water, minding its own business. Like that. Maybe this creature actually has bigger arms that come out and grabs your face, but you can't tell that. It just kind of looks like this flowing entity, which is kind of cool. All right, so now what I'm doing is I'm doing very light, thick to thin strokes as I go up these appendages on the head. See how fast that is? Now notice how every time, oh, let me zoom in so you can see it. Notice how every time I do that, it's filling up some gaps until you get this really nice coating with ink. It's a very unique thing that you can do with the pen that you cannot do with any other tool. This is why sketching with the pen is so satisfying, because it just offers a texture that is so hard to rival, or so hard to match, sorry, poor choice of words. It's so hard to match with other tools. Maybe it's just the texture, maybe it's just the way it looks. You know, even, and this is black, and it still looks kind of blue, even though, you know, it is under blue light. Actually, let's test the warmth. Let's do, there's a warmer light. I think that's what that's the warmest. That's the blue one. Okay, that's not bad. I have this really cool light, and it's like a ring light. It also holds a cell phone, and I don't remember where I got it. I think I ordered it off Amazon, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so now that I'm doing this, you know, we're going to put in some of that atmospheric perspective here and just having some shapes barely show. Okay, we got to add value around value. We can't let value sit alone unless it's finished and has a nice outline. You always got to counteract value with value around it so that you can differentiate between what is light, medium, and dark. Once you do that, it's going to open up a world of like craziness when it comes to drawing depth. There we go. Okay. This is not long and sharp enough, so I'm just going to make that really... If you are new to my channel, thank you so much for just, you know, sticking around, tuning in and watching me draw. Hopefully this is helping anybody working on class projects, anybody, you know, wondering, hey, am I ever going to be a good artist? Can I ever get a job as a concept artist in the industry? You know, all that. You know, if you're wondering about those things too, I have a whole playlist dedicated to industry insights. You know, so take a gander all over there and see if you can, you know, find something that's valuable to you. I go over portfolio reviewing, what happens behind closed doors, you know, how to price your freelancing, how to find freelance work, how to deal with depression. So go check that playlist out. Okay. Ooh, yeah. Guess what it is almost time for? It is almost time for time lapse. Because in time lapse, I'm just gonna try to flood the whole thing with some more detail here. I've been debating whether or not to just play techno, but I used to do live sketch. Guess what, guys? If you subscribe to my channel, it's probably a good idea because I'm going to get back into doing some live sessions. And you know, I love doing the premieres. I think that's really fun, but live sessions, anything goes. There's no plan. I'm just going to draw, just to draw. And you guys can tune in. I'll ask questions. You know, I'll answer questions. You ask them. It'll be a lot of fun. I'll let you guys know when I have live sessions. Probably early spring. And by then I'll have my new camera, and I already have one picked out. Can't wait to set that up. Got some exciting things happening for this channel that I can't quite say yet, but they're pretty major. There we go. See, like in the mouth, I can't really have spit because it's swimming, so you can't tell. All right, folks. Now is the time for now's the time for time lapse. I hope you enjoy. Alrighty, hopefully you enjoyed that little time-lapse section. And if you watched the whole way, you'll notice that I was wisping around a lot of marks just to get the body right. So we have a very big tail here. I originally, when I was drawing this creature, this very large, I guess you can call it fin, it started to annoy me. So I didn't put any more detail on this. I kept it light and loose, which is another reason why we need to draw through our objects and not put as much detail on it. I ended up drawing the rest of the body through it, so it's got like this serpentine-like tail, and it's got this opening at the end. Maybe there's a stinger attached to it, but here's another fin. Up here, I put a little bit more line work on this hunchback. So I'm thinking, what would be cool is if this was some kind of reservoir within the body. Maybe it holds its children in there. Maybe this is a female and the babies are up here. Kind of like how, if you ever watched a video close-up of a pregnant spider, how all the spider eggs just hang out on the mom. It's kind of gross, but awesome at the same time. So either this could be where the unborn children are, and it just kind of carries it around, kind of like an underwater marsupial, or it's deadlier, and these are actually poison sacs. Maybe it breathes like that, so maybe it can, do what alligators do and do what hippos do, and they stay underwater for like a half an hour. Maybe it sucks in air and it just kind of keeps it in there. There's a lot of possibilities. This is one of the coolest things about doing thumbnails like this and just drawing through the object. Kind of the shapes just come out as they may. So in here, let me explain what's actually happening. I'm thinking that this particular appendage coming down, that's like a main one, and it's attached directly to the neck. Underneath that, there's a shoulder here. So it's almost like the shoulder and the neck are touching. So if the round part isn't jutting out per se, maybe I can just darken this a little to where it looks like that entire giant fin is actually in shadow and this is out front. All right, so that's probably going to work. I darkened this edge to kind of like this mandible coming down, but also to that fin because it's attached by a very stretchy membrane. So let's put some wrinkles in there so you can see it. This is another reason why it's good to work lightly first, especially if you are using pen. Because like I've been saying, when you put pen down, it's not coming up. Okay, so you either have to just not care about what you're doing or know exactly what you want to design. I didn't know what I wanted to design. I'm letting these shapes come out as they may, so I'm kind of just winging it. I'm seeing what works, what doesn't work, kind of checking as I go. There's a lot of very cool stretchy parts. Maybe translucent even, similar to a jellyfish. So here this is where just confident lines come in. Yeah, it takes a lot of mileage and repetition. You just got to do this over and over and over and over and over again. But you can learn this in relatively short amount of time if you just allow the pen or pencil to just make the marks. If I have a general shape that I want to follow, I don't really care what happens. I know that this is going to be a fin at the end of the tail, so let's put a little bit more indication of a fin on there. If any of you have ever handled certain freshwater fish, when you catch like even catfish or carp or whatever, their fins can be almost serrated, kind of like a knife. You want to indicate that. Putting little stumps and little spikes at the end of fins is kind of a cool way to show that it is aquatic. And I'm gonna make this very wavy, almost fully transparent fin coming around the tail like this, but I'm gonna make sure that you can actually see the tail. All right, so there we go. And then over here, it's not important. It's just like a grouping of tentacles that come down. And the reason I say it's not important is because the focus is on the face. Okay, when you see that face, you definitely do not want to mess with it. I've added a lot more beef, I guess you could say, right underneath that chin part. Now, notice what I'm doing here as a play on values. That, I guess you can call it a throat. The throat is indicated by that line right there. Now, I have all these tentacles sitting above it. I don't want to put more shadow underneath there. I'm done. Maybe I can put in a little bit more. Here's the reason why. If I put more shadow inside there on that neck, then you will lose the values that you have already established for the tentacles, because those tentacles are the closest to us. You're going to mess up your atmospheric perspective if you do that. Instead, when you see a value on your paper, look at the value directly next to it. Is there enough of a contrast? All right, and that like one of the biggest problems, and I've done this too in the past, is like there's no contrast in drawings. It's all the same shading. So I'm going to treat this like a light source is coming down, bouncing off of the, I guess you can call it an ocean, bouncing off the ocean floor, and then it bounces right back up to the underbelly. Okay, so now you can clearly see that there's a throat without me having to explain too much. All right, so this big, I guess you can call it a fin. See, I'm guessing a lot because there's a lot of things on this body that probably wouldn't exist anywhere. But I'm putting more scales on here just to let you know that this is the closest to you. Maybe a little indication of a core shadow. I'm just walking ink lines down the entire thing. Same thing with here. I'm not doing this just because this is actually the core shadow, because this is a cylindrical shape. All right, there is bone inside here and it's rounded, so you want to give that illusion that it's rounded. Now this, if this is lit from above, anywhere from above, this is going to be a cast shadow directly on that fin. But because we don't want to put too much value with a pen in there, I'm just going to indicate where that shadow is. So I'm just going to darken it. I'm going to walk it across here like this. And then I'm going to put some hatching right underneath that fin, and that's it. I don't want to do anything else. Again, the focus is the face, and that's it. So let's zoom in, and I will show you what's going on. All right. So you can see a lot of this stuff is super loose. This is one of the beautiful things that pens can do that pencils cannot. All right, it's just a strange, unique feel that you can get with pen markings. All right, so this is all the looseness that you watched me do during the time-lapse section down here. So there's the tail. And to achieve these types of lines, you know, the good old-fashioned product design, industrial design lines, is just thick to thin really fast. You just flick your wrist, do it again. Now, when you flick your wrist and your hand moves, notice how the line just keeps going and then it fades off. See that thick to thin all the way to the very whiteness of the paper. All right, that's when you're going to accomplish the best kind of lines. All right, so up here, you know, if there's any open areas, I'm really not releasing the pen off of the surface of the paper, actually. I'm just kind of letting it corkscrew around, see what happens. And by doing so, it's forming a texture in there. And then after you form the texture of all these lines overlapping, overlapping, and overlapping, a cool thing happens. And it's all light. So now, look at all the little sections where they crisscross. Wherever two lines meet, that point should be the darkest point, and then you disperse the line weight outwards. Let me show you what I mean. So inside here, it almost looks like all the scribbly lines stacked on top of each other formed their own scale system. So I'm just going to lightly put in darkness and then go to light. There's a lot of crisscrosses in here, so I'm going to go dark to light, dark to light. They're meeting here, they're meeting there. And then all of a sudden, look what's happening. You start to see scales emerge. And I barely did any work. Instead of me painstakingly sitting here for 49 hours and trying to put in every scale, which, I mean, it's fine if you want to do that. It can still look cool. But if you want to do this stuff quickly and still show the same result, this is the way to go. It's just shortcuts, guys. And this technique that I used can be used on not just a creature. You can do bark on a tree, you can do dirt. If you are sketching even skin patterns, wrinkles, branches in a tree, etc. Like tons of stuff that you want to draw in nature. Rocks even. Like it's really cool. So I'm just looking at all the places where they crisscross, and I'm just going to darken and maybe round off some areas where it looks like the scales are actually protruding from the surface. Okay, and since these scales are actually closest to us right now, they get the darker treatment. And then as I move down the body where the looseness kind of gets lighter and lighter and it disperses, I'm going to use less and less of it. I'm just going to indicate, by holding my pen to the side like this. And then all of a sudden, let me zoom out so you can see what I'm talking about. Check that out. So now you have this really cool pattern emerging. And it's all because I just did this. Okay, now I was following the direction of the body. That's what's going to give you the most accurate form of scales, is when you follow the direction of the body. It's kind of like applying hair and fur to the surface of an animal that you're drawing. Okay, fur travels a certain way. You can't just make it up. All right, so like here with this large shoulder-like appendage, I'm going to treat it like this. Okay, so these scales right here are the closest to us, so they get the darker treatment to bring it out to the forefront, and then they fade off down here. Same thing will happen in this area, and this area, and then maybe down here, because the fin, this one, bends outwards and it's closest to us at this point. Okay, but it's also really skinny, so I can just put some darkness in here and then, there. I don't really need to do much else. Here, I'm just going to bend around the same type of scales. You want to, one of the principles of design is repetition. So, and I'm going to go over more principles of design through creatures in my future videos. I got a lot of creatures coming, man. A lot of them. Okay, so like repetition is important. Repetition is, if you have an element that's shown in some of your art, make sure that that same element is shown throughout the entire picture. Okay, if your creature's face has scales mixed with fur, you want to make sure that there's scales mixed with fur in different places on the rest of the body so you can bring it in. All right, so check this out. Now you got repetition and it looks more congruent. Like this looks like it belongs to the rest of the creature. All right, and then this one, of course, look how quickly I can do this with a pen. I mean, you can do this with a pencil too. But I'm just going to put in more of an emphasis because the scales themselves are larger. There we go. Like that. That's still not quite dark enough, so I'm going to darken up right here. Okay, there we go. Now in here, there's probably going to be some contact shadow with that. I keep calling it an ear fin because that's essentially what it is. It's an ear fin. So I'm just going to wrap this around here. There we go. And then what I can do is I can just play up the rest of that fin here. So now you start to see, here's the beauty of layering with a pen. Can you guys see this now? I got this crazy looking sea creature. I don't know what to name it. Oh, speaking of naming, I would love to hear you guys name this, okay? Whoever has the best name, I want you to comment below. Whoever has the best name, I will give you a shout out, okay? And I will give your YouTube channel a shout out next video, I promise. But I want to hear the best name for this thing. That would be a lot of fun. Don't give me a cute name. You could give me a funny name, but not a cute name, okay? There we go. I'm not really going to add any textures on that poison sac. I'm just going to indicate where it is. Again, like, that could be... Ooh, you know what would be crazy? It kind of looks like egg yolk. What if that is an embryo just growing inside there and it's translucent so you can see a baby in it? Ooh, man, let's do that. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Here's the umbilical cord. And to have a very small version of this creature in its back, It's not going to be big, so let's do kind of like a, I don't know, creature-esque zygote, I guess you can call it. So the tentacles won't be grown. I mean, it's not really going to have a shape yet. But if it were, it's definitely going to have that hunchback in there, and then the strange tail. So maybe the tail's like wrapped up. Oh, look at that. It's like the little baby inside there. That is so weird. Hopefully you guys like it. Okay, and then there's the creature's version of a placenta. Maybe it's just like attached up to the top of it. There we go. You want to indicate that there's some light wrapping around the rounded section. Okay, so you want to go over the drawing. Yeah, there we go. So that's the baby. Okay. We can't really see what's going on this side, but let's just indicate something's there, but not in the same spot. So let's wrap a little infant, not an infant, but like just some kind of thing growing inside there right there. And then I won't show anything else other than putting maybe a core shadow running down that body. And then you have a little baby in there. That's pretty cool. So I guess the way it's born is maybe instead of just outgrowing it, I mean, it could outgrow that part inside, like that yolk. Maybe it starts to develop these little appendages on its face, and then it just rips it open. And then the babies just like pop out, and it just keeps growing over and over and over again. There we go. I'm going to darken the tips so that you can see them. That's another trick. You guys doing teeth, scales, horns, spikes, appendages, anything like that, always darken the tail and go dark to light all the way back up it, or the tip, and then you'll be able to see it. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed this creature design lesson today with a ballpoint pen. I'm going to do more ballpoint pen sketches. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and subscribe. That would be awesome. Again, comment below so we can name this thing. Also, tell me about your artistic journeys because I really love hearing about them. Visit the description where you can see some of my prints. I have my new demonic series that you can order from ArtStation. They do a fantastic job at the quality. So they'll ship it for you. They'll frame it if you want. They have canvas prints. And if you want to join our Creature Design Workshop Discord, that is also in the link below. And if I offer private mentorships for drawing and digital painting, and also creature design workshops. So, give all those links a try. Also, if you want to know what supplies I actually use, I have a couple links directly on the video. You can just see those pop up and purchase those if you would like. All right. Thanks again. I got another creature sketch coming this week, so there's going to be 2 releases. I will see y'all later. Peace.